Hey, so this is a post fight update. We're back in Patia now. I fought on Friday and it's Sunday afternoon now, so like a day and some after my fight. I got my shin split open in my fight. I actually had this happen to me once before. I was fighting Nang Hong in her hometown of Uttararit, and I just looked down in the fight at some point and my shin had opened. I think it happened one more time, maybe in a Karchuk fight, because I kind of remember there being blood on my opponent's shin, and we were like, oh, look at her shin, and then it turned out it was my shin bleeding. So this is maybe the third time that this has happened, but I think the first time was that fight against Nang Hong. And I went and got stitches after that fight, kind of really late after that fight, because we realized it wasn't going to close. And then I fought with the stitches in my shin. I think I just put a sock sleeve thing over it for that fight, and they didn't open the fight, and I was happy. But in this fight, it opened long. It was a long cut, and it's very deep. After the fight, I was like, I don't need stitches, it's no problem, I'll just deal with it when I get back to Patia. Because I have these little plastic things that I was thinking they work as stitches. They kind of just zip everything together. So I just kind of taped it together with band-aids where you pull the skin so it's more or less closed. And I thought I'd deal with it after we'd driven back home to Patia the next day. But it wouldn't stop bleeding. And Kevin convinced me to go get stitches, and he made the right call. He convinced me to go get stitches after my fight at a local hospital. His argument was that when you get cut, someone asked me this actually recently, when you get cut, the scar tissue is a different density than the rest of the skin around it. So you're actually more likely to open again when you already have scar tissue. Scar tissue makes you more likely to cut again rather than being tough because of the density differentiation with normal skin. So the fact that this is opened, now this is the third time, this is not a spot that I want opening at all, but it will start opening in training and stuff like this if I don't really take care of it. So Kevin totally made the right decision about not wanting it to open too much and that we should go get it stitched. His reasoning was totally solid. The thing that actually got me to go get stitches is that I was worried about bleeding in the bed of a hotel that we don't live at. So, whatever convinces you. He made the right decision. I made the right decision based on the wrong reasons. But so we went into the hospital, and it's actually quite deep. When the doctor looked at it, he could not fathom that this came from fighting Muay Thai. I think it's from blocking. I don't think it's from kicking, because the other two times that this has happened has been from blocking. And he said it doesn't reach the bone, which is really good infection-wise, but it's so deep that he had to do 2 internal stitches, which means inside the cut itself, and then he did 4 to close up the top of it. The fact that he had to do those 2 internal stitches, which are a different kind of suture thread, so I don't take those out. Those will just dissolve. They're like what you get when you get your wisdom teeth out or something. Those will dissolve on their own. I have to take the 4 stitches that are on the surface out in 10 days or something. But the fact that he had to do those internal stitches means that whatever my plan was of just pulling the skin together would have basically created a pocket, and this thing would be opening kicking pads and stuff. So again, super correct decision to go get this done. It's covered right now. I took a picture of it when I had to take the bandage off to clean it. So that's me. That's Nurse Sylvie. I actually love doing nurse type stuff, so I'm super excited cleaning this and dressing it and stuff like that. But I'm dealing with it very differently from how I deal with normal stitches. The stitches in my face and stuff like that, not super deep, just because the skin on the face is not super deep. Those, I totally just go back to training really fast. I cover it in Vaseline and make sure it stays clean. They tell you to keep it dry to avoid infection, stuff like that. But with this one, they're for serious, keep the bandage on, keep it super dry, don't let it touch water. I'm basically sponge bathing my leg, and then the rest of my body I can shower. I can wrap it in saran wrap when I need to, keep it dry if there's splashy stuff going on or taking a shower or something like that. But I'm treating this much more seriously than I treat the stitches in my face. So if you guys watch the videos I've made of how to deal with stitches or read my blog post on how to deal with stitches, that is all true for stuff that's had surface in your skin, on your head, in your face, your scalp, stuff like that. This is as deep as skin gets on your face. These are the areas that take a long time to heal just because they're thicker and they move when you're talking and stuff. My shin doesn't move, which is great, but if it gets touched, it'll pop open because the skin is very deep, but the shin is right on the surface. So these ones I have to deal with a little bit differently. But in the process of getting these stitches, one, they are the most beautiful stitches I've ever seen in my life. Like, I'm used to getting stitches ringside, right? So I just get out of the ring and my adrenaline takes care of most of the pain issue. I don't take an anesthetic of any kind. They don't inject you with anything. They just clean it, stitch you up, you go home. This one I got like 3 hours later. It's in a tough spot. I went to a hospital. Hospitals always give you like they inject an anesthetic to do stitches, which I've had that in my face a few times and it doesn't make that big of a difference to me. If you get stitches in your face immediately after a fight, honestly, the adrenaline is like enough. This one, I was super glad that they had done the anesthetic for that. But they're gorgeous. They're beautiful because when a doctor has adequate light and time and all the equipment he needs, they do really nice stitches. The stitches I've had in my face that are ringside, it's like people holding a flashlight or like using the lights above a pool table. They're swelling, so like they'll kind of just get the edge and that stitch ends up only being attached to one side. I'm not ragging on ringside doctors. I love ringside doctors. I am not dragging their abilities. They are awesome doctors, but they're basically like field hospital. Like they're in the bush. They don't have all the things they need to do like gorgeous stitches. So these are really beautiful, nice stitches, and I'm kind of in awe of them and crushing on my doctor a little bit to Kevin about how wonderful his stitching was. But this brings up my stitch count to 231, which I've been telling people it's like 218 because I actually just lost count. And Kevin and I weren't sure when we were adding these to my stitch count. And so we actually had to go back and look at what my most recent posts about stitches were. And it turns out I was at 225 and these are 6 stitches. So now at 231. So stitch count is at 231. The reason I have a stitch count is because the first time I ever got cut in a fight, which was like my 9th fight, I got glued and I sent the picture to John Wayne Parr because he's the stitch guy. And I was like, oh, I got cut in my fight. And he's like, you can't get glued. He's like, how are you going to have a stitch count if you get glued? I'd never heard of a stitch count. So because of John Wayne Parr, I now have a stitch count. His is way, way higher than mine. He counts his surgeries, stitches from surgeries, which I don't. I only count my stitches from fighting. To be fair, when he counts his stitches from surgeries, they're surgeries he's getting basically because of things that broke in fighting, like his orbital bone and stuff like this. So they're different counts, different tolerances. He says this is the one competition he doesn't mind losing. He's super competitive and I don't actually believe him. I think he does want to win the stitch count competition. But yeah, so this brings me to 231. I'll put a picture in KindMaster for you guys to see what this cut looks like and how gorgeous these stitches are that this doctor put in. And again, I'm super stoked that I actually did go in and get that stitch because it's so deep. And I really just don't want this to be opening up all the time. I don't mind so much if it opens up in a fight. In the fight, I don't really mind. Having to recover from it all the time, that pisses me off. And I definitely don't want it to be opening during training. That's just like asking for infection and tons of time to recover and stuff like that. So not kicking on it for sure for a while. Like, stitches come out, it heals, I leave it alone for a long time. I don't think I'm going to be kicking with my right leg for quite a while. So right knees and teeps are on the way. This came out of Fight 270. You guys can watch my pre-fight update, which I did for that, as well as my post-fight update, and we'll have the video of the fight up ASAP. So thanks for listening to my blah blah.